this week I have something a little bit different for you. I've done a Shein haul, but for art supplies that might be useful at school if they work. Check out to see what works, what I'd recommend and what I wouldn't, and see if I can remember what I've actually ordered. Let's go! We're off to a flying start, as I already have one item that I am not sure what it is, what I ordered. Please bear in mind I did order this last year, I just haven't had a chance to go through it all, and I've actually forgotten what I've ordered. So this, I am assuming, is a rubber, an eraser, and just that it's easy to hold like a pencil, and that's what the indentations are for. It feels pretty soft. We will try it later maybe to find out, but that's the only thing I can think it is. I'm not sure what else it could be. Moving on, this is a watercolour workbook which I thought would be useful for early finishers. It tells you everything that you need, like brush, paint, water and a paper towel, and it shows you some basic colour mixing and has some different activities to do throughout. So you've got the outline of what you're going to paint, and then you've got an example of how it should look with the colours that have been used. The only thing I'd say is that the paper is really shiny and it's definitely not watercolour paper, so it'll be interesting to see how this turns out. But it does give you some step-by-step instructions of how to paint the picture that's on the right hand side. Very basic, I will say, but we'll see how this goes. I'm happy to try it out. So I also got this palette of watercolours. I don't know how these will go either. They look okay. We'll have a little look now at what they're like. So this watercolour palette had one of those brush pens with them, you know, where you fill up the handle part with water. I love these pens. I think they're all very similar and you can't go wrong with them. Just that I forget that you just squeeze it for a bit of water, and I end up dunking my brush part into water anyway, whether I have a normal brush or this. And then you can see on this watercolour palette it has a foam pad. I'm assuming that's instead of using tissue. We'll see how that goes, and a good variety of colours on here. So you've got shiny watercolours, which is how I remember watercolours as a kid in a palette, rather than the palettes that we now have at school. They're quite powdery. So we'll see how these go. So looking at my first instruction on here, we need to go with a nice light orange. And I'm going to make sure that I use their brush pen as well. I don't know what you call these. Does anyone know the proper name for these? I just call it a brush pen, but with water in it rather than ink. So you can see it's picked up the colour fine, and I started laying it on here. The texture just looked really strange because of the type of paper. It's just such shiny paper, and as you can see it's gone on really lightly, but I did wonder if it was going to dry. So a way to overcome this is you could always photocopy the pages onto watercolour paper. You may get the ink run when you touch it with water, that sort of thing, depending on what style of printer you have. I mean, like the ink of the outline of the pumpkin in this example. These watercolours were really buildable and really good for the price. The only thing I'd say is I'm not sure if they'd be safe for use at school. There's nothing to say about if they're toxic or anything. Just, I'm very wary about that. So even though they're fantastic, I don't think I'd use the paint palettes at school. However, the workbooks, I think if you can afford to get them for children in after school club or for early finishers, that'd be great. And like I say, if you don't have enough money, you could just buy one and photocopy the stuff so that the children can work from that. With the workbook, I'm really glad that it's got a picture to work from, and it shows you the different shades of colours that are in the picture so the children can try and find those or make those shades. The step-by-step guide is very basic, so it will tell you about putting light areas of colouring and then adding a dark bit, and it's like, but to where? So some bits are a bit vague, however there is the picture there to guide them, and I think most of the time the children look at the picture more than reading the instructions, as we know sometimes. I was worried about the paint drying on the workbook because of the shiny paper and rippling, also because of it being shiny and strange, this paper. I'm not really sure what it's coated in, but it's just a strange texture. But anyway, moving on from that, the workbook did actually allow the paint to dry somehow, magically. And so from that, I'm going to give it a thumbs up, because this is quite useful for children to have a self-guided exploration activity when they finished early, and they can always add to it, so they can put it in their drawer and get it back out to work on again, or like I say, after school club. Fantastic for that kind of stuff. So thumbs up. Paint, I love it for home use, but as I don't know if it's toxic or anything, and obviously you've got to be careful at school, I'm gonna say no. But home use, yes, for adults. And there's a good few activities in here, or a good few pictures that they can use for a good while. So you can see that we've got a squirrel, that looks quite complicated, but I've just gone with a fairly basic one to do with shadowing and effects. And then you've got the leaves, which will work really well for looking at how watercolours can bleed. And you can also get different workbooks which are for different times of year. So this is an autumn one, and as you can see, this works really well with a theme. Okay, let's grab another art material to test out. So let's test out this sketchbook. Can't remember if it was A5 or A6. Oh, it is A5 it was. And I'm also going to test it out with these pencils. I don't know about you guys, but we get through so many pencils. The different grades of pencils get messed up and those go missing. So if these are any good, then I will
anyone else
keep
really particular like
these.
me?
These were in the box in completely the wrong order, so I had to order them first. And also, who puts them in the wrong order to start with? And have you seen the size of these leads on the end? When sketching in class, I like to test out what shades we are dealing with. So if we've only got 3 pencils, then I like the children to test out what kind of lightness and darkness we're dealing with. So obviously there's a good variety of pencils here. I think they went from 2H through to 7B, so quite a good range. We always do little swatch tests with our pencils in the corner or down the side of our sheet of paper, and I just get them to do a little roughly centimetre by centimetre square, and they're just going to go backwards and forwards and press hard with the pencil and then also press light with the pencil. So the tip that I give for this is you hold towards the nib of the pencil and press with a good amount of pressure, and then to get a lighter pressure, you're going to hold towards the end of the pencil, so there's more movement and you're not in control as much, and this will give a much lighter floaty flow. Oh, try saying that again. Much lighter floaty flow, and this will encourage the pencil to give a much lighter finish. So we do this for all of the pencils that we're going to use, so they can see what they're dealing with and what they can do. And also we make sure that we label next to them which pencil we use. So if it's 2H or 3B or whatever, make sure you label that next to it so that they can visually see what lightness and darkness they can get from that pencil. So here is my scale from fine to 7B. So as you can see, 7B gives a really dark finish. as it should. And we are going to test out these pencils by doing a very, very, very basic apple, so that we can think about what it will look like with the light shining on the one side and the darkness on the other, so we can also create a bit of a shadow. So you do a bit of a heart kind of shape at the top. You've got that little dip in the middle, and then when you come to the base, you round it off a little bit so it's not got the point like a heart does. But we're just going to do that for our little test. Work out where the light's coming from, work out where the shadow's going to be. Don't forget to draw our stem, and then just work from light to dark. So we're going to start with our light shading and just shade over the apple, all over, apart from where the light is going to be super, super bright. So you can see I'm using a 2H here, and I'm holding my pencil at the end so that we get that nice free flow of movement, and that gives us that light finish. And I've left this rounded area, so this is where the light is hitting the hardest. But we're then going to go in with our next harder pencil. So I'm going to go with a 2B or a 3B. I'm not going to worry about a H and a HB because I want to go quite dark with this apple now. So we're just going to build up, as you can see, just a little bit more of shade. But don't go over everywhere that you've just been. Just go towards the one side which is going to be a bit darker. So we're going to build up the darkness on the one side, making sure that we definitely avoid that circle of light on the right hand side. Keep building that darkness up. Again, you can see that I am just holding at the end of the pencil at the moment, so it's still fairly light. I'm pretty much just tickling the paper. But just keep building it up and go through the pencils until you get to 6B or 7B. And you will see the colour will get darker even though you're only pressing very lightly at the moment. You then might need to start pressing a bit harder with your pencil so that you get that variation of darkness. So you'll notice that as I do that, my hand moves a bit further up the pencil. Not to the end completely because I don't want it to be so dark, but it moves to about the midpoint of the pencil. And then you can use your pencil to outline the edge of your apple. And you may notice as well that I've been making the right side a little bit darker just on the edge to contrast with where the light is hitting on that round part. Don't forget to do your stem. Again, think about which side the light is hitting, and because this is a smaller, more detailed bit, you'll see that I'm in control of the pencil a bit more. I'm holding it towards the nib more, and this gives me a crisper, clearer line. And we get to try out another art material now. So I got these paper stubs, what are they called? Can't think what they're called right now off the top of my head. But they're where they are rolled up, really tight pieces of paper. You can make these at home and they're much cheaper, but these are tightly rolled. And I just thought I'd test them out because I think they were less than £1. But always start from your lightest area. So I'm just going in a circular motion around that circle that I left white. So I'm going outwards towards the darker bits, and you can see that this stump, what are they called? It's driving me insane. I can't think of what it's called. You can see it's doing a really good job of blending those pencil lines together, so you can't see all of those lines so much. Just keep working in circular motions and you will see such a difference in this picture just from using this. My apple wasn't quite dark enough, so I went in and I added a bit more and then blended that pencil back out, and you can see it just blends so seamlessly. So these pencils are brilliant. The only thing, like I said at the beginning, is that they do need a good sharpen, as the tips are really wide. I don't know why, but as I was just shading with them mainly, I didn't bother sharpening them at the beginning. Otherwise I would always say work with a sharp pencil. But I have got a sharpener coming up in a bit, so we can test that out. However, I can use what I believe to be an eraser. I think it's an eraser. I don't remember ordering this. This is the only thing with Shein. I do not remember ordering this, so I don't know if this is meant to be in my order. But it seemed to rub out parts of the apple where there might be a highlight on the opposite side. I don't know. See what you think. I'm not 100% sure it was a rubber. I don't know. But then we got this pencil sharpener, which seemed to work really well. It's like one of the electric ones you get, but you're doing it by hand. You push in the one side and then you've got the handle on the other side. I find these much better than the little sharpeners. It obviously is cheaply made, so I don't know how long it would last, but it did sharpen my pencil today. I just had to make sure that I pushed it in whilst twisting the handle. I know of ones that you can just put the pencil in and it will sharpen it without you holding it. And for doing the outline, I definitely wanted a sharper pencil, so the pencil sharpener definitely did the job. So again, thumbs up. I just don't know how long the durability is of these. To finish off my apple picture, obviously we've got the light hitting from the one side, so we've got a highlight, and to contrast that we need a shadow, so I'm just going to add a little bit of a shadow to make it more 3D and more realistic. I have to say this sketchbook, these paper stumps, and the pencils all get a thumbs up from me. I'm going to keep using this sketchbook. I know it's a sketchbook, it's not a multimedia pad, but we will try it out for these really shimmery watercolours. I have to be honest, I bought these on a whim thinking, oh my gosh, these are so pretty, and that's the only reason why I bought them. But then my inner child is like, the children will love these because of the colours, and I just think of unicorns and mermaids and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was for the children, wink wink, not for me. These definitely made me think of an eyeshadow palette, and if I got these as an eyeshadow palette and they were this shiny and pigmented, I would be super happy. But these are definitely apparently watercolours. And then I also bought some paintbrushes, as I find the ones at school are absolutely rubbish. You know what I'm talking about, the kids don't look after them in some classes, and the bristles just end up falling apart or getting all splayed out. So here's some nice thin brushes that I found. These were really good for detail actually. As you can see, they have a great narrow tip, which we don't get on many school paintbrushes. I don't know what it's like in other parts of the world, but in UK, they're not very good. Just like the pencils, we are going to swatch test these. I had to add quite a lot of water to activate these, and of course I don't expect you to see the white shimmery one, but I just wanted to test out what the pigmentation was like, and also just to see if they are actually as shimmery as they look on the palette. I have to say, they did actually surprise me with the shimmeriness. I did not expect them to come out shimmery and then dry shimmery later on. These weren't bad at all when you look at the colours on the palette and what's on the paper. They are very similar. They're very accurate to the colours that you see. They don't really change, if you know what I mean. Sometimes you see a paint colour or a pen and you think, oh, that's going to be pink, and then it turns out orange, that kind of thing. But these were pretty accurate. I just had to test these out with a really light florally picture. I don't know why it made me think of like fairies and flowers. I think it's because of the shimmer. So just bear with me whilst I have a bit of fun with painting. Just a super simple, quick painting for today. But I really like these, and the paint brushes, you can see I can get some nice thin lines with these as well. So the paint gets a thumbs up. Again, not sure about the toxins in them, so it might have to be a thing to use at home, so I guess thumbs down for school. But for my own personal use at home, definitely a thumbs up. And then the paint brushes, I will be using those in school. They give a great detail, and the nibs went back to being, sorry, not the nibs, the brush went to being back at a point when I finished, and I dipped them in water, obviously brush them to a point. That's what I try and teach the kids at school. It is so important to teach the children to look after their paint brushes. Rant over. So this little booklet I thought would be a great activity without making too much mess. So I thought it might be good for early finishers where we don't have to get out any paint, and they can just go grab it, and it's just a mindful activity. Or good for after school clubs where it isn't an art after school club, but where they can choose an activity that they want to do rather. This comes with those typical children's paint brushes, which aren't so great after a while, especially if they dry funny, you know the ones I mean. But we'll use them for this. And then this has a perforated edge, so the picture on the right hand side can be torn away from the palette on the left. So these are just water activated paint colours, and we'll see how they go, see if they're pigmented enough, see if there's enough colour on there just to fill in the picture. This is great for no mess. That's the whole reason why I got these. I thought it'd be a great activity for if we have early finishers and we need to put things away very quickly. So the only things we'd have to wash is the paint brushes and a water pot. You are limited on what colours are on the page, but they're pretty much related to what is in the picture. So you've got your basic primary colours plus a few extras. So I think that's a winner in my eyes. I didn't paint the whole picture, I just wanted to see what it's like. There's not a lot of pigmentation in there, but it is only a kid's book, and it is just, like I said, I would use it just for early finishers. So I think it could work. It'd be quite good actually to take on holiday with someone. I'm not thinking of school now, I'm just thinking of like children taking it on holiday. That's quite useful just to keep them busy. I think I'd give it a thumbs up, or maybe thumbs in the middle. You're limited on colours, but the palette on the left hand side does activate with water. I wasn't expecting it to work. I thought, oh gosh, it's not really going to give off much colour. And the pictures are quite babyish for the children that would be painting it. But if I could find some different designs of this, I think I'd definitely buy more. Now these bookmarks, I have to be honest, I have already used these. They came in a pack of 50 and they have been brilliant for when I have not had anything planned for an art lesson, or I've had an emergency the night before and I've been like, oh my gosh, what can I do in art club today? And we've used these in so many different ways. But today I'm going to use them with that watercolour palette that I used earlier on that activity book, which had shiny paper. So I want to use it on proper watercolour paper to see what it works like. But these bookmarks themselves, they're pre-cut. They have a hole in the top ready for you to thread some ribbon through, and it is decent quality paper. So these bookmarks definitely get a thumbs up from me. I highly recommend. They're already pre-cut and everything, so you don't have to spend ages chopping paper. Well, not ages, but you know, it takes extra time chopping paper, and they were really cheap. I am definitely feeling flowers and fairies and all that kind of thing today. I just went for like a wildflower meadow inspired design on this bookmark. But you can see these watercolours are decent quality. Look at the darkness of those. And they do also spread like decent watercolours as well. They bleed properly. And I do apologise, my camera focus has gone in and out several times throughout this video. I'm not sure what's going on. I don't know if I accidentally changed my camera settings or what, but I'm going to have a little look at it. So I do apologise. Okay, 2 more things left to test. So I have these fine lining pens, which I am just going to use to test on my flowers and just show you what they go from. So they are quite thin and they go to a nice thick style pen as well. So I'm just swatching them at the top of here. I'm not going to fine line the outline of all of my flowers. I've just done a little bit just to test to see if they are waterproof. As there are some wet areas on here still. It wasn't too bad actually. They did spread a little bit on this one flower, so it wasn't too bad. It was in a big blob of water, so yeah, you can just see on here just a little bit, but they have dried really quick. So as a general outlining pen, they get a thumbs up from me. The nibs have a good variety as well in sizing difference. So that's really, really useful, and it'll be useful for something that I'm going to use in a minute. Okay, I thought I had 2 more things left. It's actually 3 more things. So 2 more things left now. I forgot that I got a putty eraser. So this one is definitely a rubber, or eraser as you say in America. Unlike that long one that I used earlier, which I wasn't sure what it was. But definitely very needable. I love, 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 love putty erasers. So fun. I will say I struggled to get it out of the packaging though. But you gotta squeeze them. You gotta squeeze them as soon as they come out. But I'm going to test to see if it works. Let's see if it works. Is it going to work? Definitely works really well actually. Super soft and got a lot of the graphite off. I tested it with a harder pencil as well, and you could hardly see anything on the paper. You couldn't really see where it was. So definitely thumbs up. And these are the final products that I bought. I have an admission to make. I have already used these with great success. Spiral graphs are very, very expensive. I saw one in a shop near me for I think $9.99 or $12.99 for one. So imagine buying that for each child. These come in packs of 2, and I can't remember the price again. I will try and find it. But buying 15 for a class of 30 was much cheaper. I think it worked out about the same price as buying one in the shop. Each pack has a lot of elements to it. There's quite a few parts to it, so they can really explore what you can do with spirographs and create patterns, and I think this is really, really fun. Who doesn't love a spirograph? As you can see, I'm using it with the new pens as well. So the pens are really consistent with the ink, and the nibs are thin enough to go into these holes. As someone who's used quite a few spirographs, I think most spirographs have very, very narrow holes, so it's quite hard to sometimes find a pen or even a pencil that fits through. Sometimes the lead is too thick on a pencil, so you need to use very thin nibbed pens. I really hope that this video helps you access materials that might be more in your budget. We all know at the end of a school year, budgets are tight, and budgets are tight in general at school for art materials. So you have to be smart and use different ideas by either going to charity shops or recycling something as something else, or you might have to turn to Shein and get things like the spirograph, where it's much cheaper than what's in the shops. And you can then create and really experiment with a variety of materials. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more art related content just like this, and art lessons to help you reduce your planning time and your prep time. See you soon for more Art Club with Miss Burford.